Welcome to episode 219 of the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I'm Ashley Scott Myers, screenwriter and blogger at sellingyourscreenplay.com. Today I'm interviewing writer-director Kimble Rendall, who just wrote and directed the film Guardians of the Tomb starring Kelsey Grammer. We talk about his latest film and we also talk about how he broke into the business. So stay tuned for that interview. If you find this episode valuable, please help me out by giving me a review in iTunes or leave me a comment on YouTube or retweeting the podcast on Twitter or liking and sharing it on Facebook. These social media shares really do help spread word about the podcast, so they're very much appreciated. Any websites or links that I mention in the podcast can be found on my blog in the show notes. I also publish a transcript with every episode in case you'd rather read the show or look at something later on. You can find all the podcast show notes at www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/podcasts, and then just look for episode number 219. If you want my free guide, How to Sell a Screenplay in 5 Weeks, you can pick that up by going to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. It's completely free. You just put in your email address and I'll send you a new lesson once per week for 5 weeks along with a bunch of bonus lessons. I teach the whole process of how to sell your screenplay in that guide. I'll teach you how to write a professional logline and query letter and how to find agents, managers, and producers who are looking for material. Really is everything you need to know to sell your screenplay. Just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. A quick few words about what I'm working on. A quick update on The Pinch, which is the crime thriller feature film that I wrote, directed, and produced last year. So I've been talking with distributors and some other producers who have been helping me and giving me advice throughout this whole process. And everyone keeps emphasizing the importance of the poster and the trailer, but especially the poster. What they're telling me is that on platforms like iTunes and Amazon, the poster can really make or break the film. If the poster looks cool, it can really help sales. So I'm working on redoing the poster, not even redoing, I'm working on creating a new poster. I'm not a graphic designer and obviously budget is super tight, so I've got to hire someone to do this. What I did last week was I went to, and this is actually maybe a tip if you're in a similar situation, I went to redbox.com, and it's a pretty useful site in the sense that you can see all these posters. You can go to like the thriller section and then you can see a whole bunch of posters on one page and kind of scroll through them. And so I was just looking at some of the movie posters on there to get some ideas about what I want for my poster, and I started just looking through my own screenshots, the imagery that we have, the pictures that we took on set, look at all my pictures, and then trying to come up with some kind of an idea about what looks cool, what posters do I like on Redbox, and then maybe I can kind of use that as a template for my own. So I spent a little bit of time last week figuring that out. I placed an ad on Craigslist to try and find a designer, a graphic designer with some experience on posters, and I have a couple of candidates that look good. If you have any experience, if you're listening to this podcast and you have experience designing posters and you'd like to take a crack at this one, please do email me, info@sellingyourscreenplay.com. I'd love to hear from you. And if you have any experience, even hiring someone to do a poster, any experience, in distribution, any experience on what makes a good poster, I'm all ears. So any thoughts anybody has on that, please do let me know. And again, if you have any interest in maybe taking a crack at this, just drop me an email. Take a look at the poster too, what I have on IMDb. You can see the current Pinch poster, and this new one, it's got to be better than that one. And it's just got to look more professional, maybe be a little more exciting, just, get more people interested in the film just on its, face value, just the face value of the poster. So I've got that going. That's what I was working on last week, and then I'm going to revisit my trailer and make sure that's as good as it can be. Again, I've gotten some notes on the trailer, so there's definitely some things that need to be tweaked, and I'll hopefully get the poster, at least get the designer working on the poster this week, and then maybe next week I'll take another crack at the trailer. First, again, I've just got to figure out what I want the trailer to be, and then I'll talk maybe to my my editor who put the trailer together, see if he can make the tweaks, or maybe I'll even just load it up in Premiere and see if I can make the tweaks myself. But again, this is just something to really keep in mind. And I think it was somewhat counterintuitive. I would have thought, the trailer is a bigger piece piece, it's more elaborate, it's harder to get a good trailer. So you would think that you want to spend your money on the trailer, but people are telling me if you're going to spend, some money on the trailer or the poster, put that money into the poster. That's the advice I'm getting. And as I said, it's not always counterintuitive because it seems like a poster would be an easy thing to do. But as you start to look at movie posters, especially for low budget films, one of the sort of telltale signs of a low budget film is a low budget looking poster. And you really want to present on iTunes, on Amazon, you want to present, your movie in the most professional light possible. You want to make it look like a much bigger production than it actually was. Anyway, that's the update on the pinch. On the writing front, as mentioned, I completed a writing assignment a couple of weeks ago. It was a kids' TV show where I wrote 4 episodes. Now it's basically just, I've submitted those scripts back to the producers, and then they've got to go out and start putting it all together. So hopefully that will begin to happen. I like to keep myself writing every day. I like to just stay in the routine of writing. And so I'm just not quite sure. I don't have any writing assignments currently. I don't have any specs that I'm in the middle of. So I'm not quite sure what I'm going to write next. So last week I actually started writing some short scripts. These are just random ideas. I have a nice sort of an idea bank, and it's just a Google Doc that I keep. And, anytime I come up with an idea that I think might be a cool idea for a script, I just put it in this idea bank. And, I kind of divide it up into different things of like low budget ideas, maybe higher budget ideas. And then I also have a section for shorts. Sometimes I'll just come up with just sort of a random idea. I know it's not enough of an idea for a feature, so I just pop it in there. I've probably got, 5 or 8 of these ideas I've come up with over the last year or 2 or 3 or whatever. And just looking back, I think actually these are usually they're more comedic than I would say dramatic, but there's a couple dramatic ones in there. But just reading back over those ideas, I'm thinking, this actually is not a bad idea. I should knock it out. So last week I started to do that. Started to knock out some of those pages. I mean, they're just going to be 6 to 10 pages each, and so they're pretty easy to write. And I'm not really sure what I'll do with them. One thought I did have was I might just try and shoot these real quick. Just shoot them myself, edit them myself, and just go through the process as quickly as possible just to get them done. I can definitely see with the pinch, I have a long ways to go as a director. I mean, I really want to improve. If I'm going to go do another feature film, I want to become a better director. And it's really hard on a feature film because it's just such a long process. Like I can't even remember, half the decisions I made on the pinch because it was almost 2 years ago. I mean, we're like probably at 18 months ago at this point, 19 months ago, 20 months ago that we actually shot it. So just as a director, I think this would be a good exercise, to say nothing of obviously improving as a writer and an editor, but just think it would be a great way as I can just do some really bold, things and see if they work. And they might be ridiculously bad ideas. And, I can just do a handheld short where it's all kinds of handheld stuff and really get a sense of how that works and how that comes together in the editing. And then, if it doesn't work, then I know on the next feature, that's probably not a good thing to try. But if it does work, I say, hey, this was kind of cool and maybe I can improve it. I can kind of test some of these directing ideas that I have out quickly on these shorts. And these are going to be things that I spend virtually no money on. I mean, I'm just, I'll get a couple of my actor friends together. I'll just use my house and I'll just sit down and I'll shoot these quickly and then edit them. As I said, really, I think the biggest part of the exercise will be improving as a director. But anyway, that's my thought. I don't know that I'm necessarily committed to that at this point, but I guess at this point we'll just kind of see how the scripts turn out. If the scripts turn out well and I like them, then maybe I'll consider taking that to the next step. So now let's get into the main segment. Today I'm interviewing director and writer Kimble Rendall. Here is the interview. Welcome, Kimball, to the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I really appreciate you coming on the show with me today.
Hi, Ashley. That's great. No, that's my pleasure. Nice to meet you.
So to start out, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up and how did you get interested in the entertainment business?
I grew up in, I was actually born in Goulburn, which is south of Sydney, and it's a country town. My parents were in a pub, a hotel. They were publicans, and I was always interested. Basically, if you jump ahead a little bit, I was always interested in music and film. They've always been my passions. Mm-hmm. And so when we moved up to Sydney, my mum took me to guitar lessons, and my dad bought me a little, Super 8 camera. And he said my dad said with the camera, he said, yeah, look, just go and shoot some stuff, you know. The camera, it fell off the back of a truck, so it's fine. Was it broken, Dad? He said, no, it's not broken, but I'll explain it to you. I'll explain it when you're a bit older. So I just started shooting Super 8 movie, like it's sort of a classic, you know, story of, you know, a lot of filmmakers, Super 8. And the music got sort of turned me off a bit, you know, because I was playing Little Brown Jug and all these old songs, and I sort of dropped out of that, but kept going with the film side of things. Went to university and studied it there, and made more films, experimental films, and you know, got into the Biennale. And you know, the government here are quite supportive of film, filmmakers, and you know, if you want to get $500 to make a experimental thing. And then the music sort of thing took off as well. When the punk explosion hit, and I was in London at the time, and I thought, oh, this is pretty cool. And so I formed one band. Excuse me, I've got a bit of a cold.
No problem.
And then I formed another band called the Hoodoo Gurus, which co-formed with my friend Dave Faulkner, and we and a couple of other guys. And that actually started to do really well. Became very well known. And so I was faced with a sort of a big decision to keep going, with the band, who is now very popular, or with my growing film side, because I was working as a film editor. And so I thought, I can't see myself, years down the track singing these songs. And so I left the band and started to concentrate, started making music videos and TV commercials, and then, eventually got into features. But then, strangely enough, 2 years ago, Dave rang me up and said, hey, do you want to come back on? We're going to get all the members of the band back. And we're going to do a tour, and we're just going to, it'd be like ABBA the musical. Hoodoo Guru is the life on stage, and we all, we just did the history of the band on stage. We started off playing, and then a couple of guys left, and a couple, next ones came on, and by the end we all played. So my career sort of entwined between music and film, and in essence, it's led me into, I did a lot of second unit work on, Hollywood films like The Matrix and I, Robot and Underworld and so on and so forth. And then I started to get my own films, and it it has led to this film. And as that's happened, I've always been writing, but not that, not overly confident with the writing. But strangely enough, I had a short in Telluride. I made a 15-minute short film, and it got into this program called Filmmakers of Tomorrow. And I was always a big fan of John Schlesinger, and so at the end of the screening of the short film, his producer came and said, Mr. Schlesinger would like to meet you. And I said, oh wow. So I went over and met him, and he said, yeah, I really like your film. Keep up the good work. And that was something that I'd written and directed, and then I ended up going back into working on other people's films and not writing so much. And then I thought, wait a minute, Mr. Schlesinger, he said keep up the good work, and I haven't been doing it. So then I started to concentrate a bit more on writing.
I wonder if we can jump back to you mentioned you were working as an editor. Maybe you can talk about that transition a little bit, moving from editor to the second unit and then to actually getting to direct some feature films. I'm sure there's some steps sort of in that process, and maybe you can kind of tell us how that all worked. Yeah,
well, when I was doing my own little, films, I was always editing them, and I really enjoyed that process. And I thought, in order to become a director, editing would be a great place to start, because you see all the other directors' work, and you can work with them. You can see how to structure it and structure the story, and so on. So I was lucky to get a job. In fact, it was nepotism. I've been trying for a long time to get a job as an editor, and my uncle had a connection at the ABC, which is the main broadcaster, and he said, oh, okay, you should go and meet this guy. So I had a meeting with him, and he said, well, yeah, what's this? And held up some sound, and I said, that's sound. And what's this? That's image. And he said, great, start next Monday. So I started as an assistant editor. I learned the first rule of filmmaking: it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I got into it, and so in those days it was apprentice. You had to wear the white gloves and all that. But so I started, working for other editors, learning from them, seeing the directors how they work, and I thought it was really great. I really love editing, and so then I moved from editing, and as I say, with the music side, into I combined that into music videos, editing for other directors. I'd always been directing my own films.
I see.
And so then I said, well, I could start directing the music videos. So I had my own company doing that. And then that led to doing commercials, because that was the linear path, I guess. And then commercials led to getting into second unit work, and that led into features.
Okay, perfect. Let's dig into Seven Guardians of the Tomb, starring Kelsey Grammer. To start out, maybe you can just give us a quick logline or pitch, kind of tell us what that film is all about.
Well, the background for me on that, just so background to how the story started, was we had a film in China before called Bait 3D, which is a shark movie, and it was very successful and became, it went to number one in China and became the biggest independent film at that time that had been made. So it was like a big hit, and then they asked us to do another one, and I heard this story that in Australia, and Gary Hamilton from Arclight Films, one of the producers, was the driving force behind making it. He said, let's do a spider movie. And so I read about this story. I sort of traced that the Chinese came to Australia years before the English and the Dutch, who supposedly discovered Australia, and they intermingled with the Aborigines up in the north, and they took a lot of stuff back. And I thought, oh, okay, well, if they came to take herbs and spices, maybe they could take some spiders as well. And then I combined that with another thing I'd read about the emperor in 200 BC had created an underground palace. And I thought, oh, well, okay, so that's a pretty cool place to put some spiders and get some people trapped. And so I combined those two aspects, two stories, or two ideas into a story, and started from there. I started to write, the treatment, and treatment got a lot of interest from the Chinese, because this film really is it's aimed at the Chinese market. Again, it's pretty much a Chinese story.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if you can speak to that just a little bit before we dig further into Seven Guardians of the Tomb. I hear that a lot from producers, let's aim this at the Chinese market. Maybe you can tell us what that's all about. Like when you're aiming a film for the Chinese market, what does that actually mean? What does the script have to have in it so that the Chinese market will be interested in it?
Well, it doesn't. I don't necessarily have to be a Chinese story, but because our last film was a shark movie, people trapped in a supermarket with a bunch of sharks, and they really liked that. I mean, as I say, it became number one. So at the time, and it still sort of applies, is that it's quite restricted, the amount of films you can get into China. I think it's now 35 from outside. So you have to go through a process of, getting approved and so on and so forth. So I just thought in this instance, if it was a Chinese story, because that's what I wanted to make in any case, that would be helpful. And as it turned out, it was the company that read the script said, yeah, we really want to do this because it's, it's about, there's a lot of Chinese values that are in the script. Family is one, like it's a big aspect of Chinese culture is family. It's a core to the, social interaction. So in our story is a sister looking for a brother. That was one aspect. There's also, they wanted to touch on the environmental issues. So we did that. And I mean, there are certain things in the scripts that you can't do. You can't, for example, criticise the government, which, most governments don't like being criticised. It's not peculiar to Chinese. But that's, and you can't show them, losing a war or something like that. So, which is fair enough. I mean, most governments don't want that. So there are some, the military has to be shown a good light and so on and so forth. The Wolf Warrior 2, which is, I think, their biggest hit ever, was a very pro-government story as well. So that just gives a good example for screenwriters. You've got to have a look at that. That's the biggest movie, I think, to come out of China ever. I think nearly it's made $1 billion.
What's the title of that again?
Wolf Warrior. Well, it's Wolf Warrior 2. There's obviously Wolf Warrior 1, but Wolf Warrior 2 is bigger. But it's, if you look back too, it's not peculiar to China. If you look back to, the political movies, even during the world wars, World War II and stuff that was coming out of all countries, primarily the USA. It's very, pro winning and pro government and pro, to telling the story of the country in a positive light, and that's what you have to do here too.
Yeah, I'm curious about you mentioned you wanted to talk about the environmental issues, and in your particular movie, you have these sort of abandoned mines. There's gas leaking out and exploding. I mean, that doesn't portray China in sort of a negative light. There's no issues with that sort of stuff.
No, that they actually wanted to show. I mean, the Chinese producers, weren't shying away from showing that side of it in a negative light. They wanted to make the point that it was there. So by having that and in the environment, they were happy to add that in. So it was, the landscape was barren, and once it had been verdant farmland, I guess. If you traced it back, and the mines had come in, and now it was more of a dust bowl. So without saying, pointedly saying it, they wanted to present the part of the world as it is now, where you do have these mines, and it's bad for the environment. It was just sort of a backdrop to the story.
Yeah,
they do talk about it. One of the characters talks about it a bit.
Yeah, let's dig into
Isn't it amazing?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
After you. No, one of the characters says, "Isn't it amazing how Mother Nature always, shows a face that, even in that environment." That's not the exact words, but that was the idea. Like, Mother Nature still pushes her way through in the midst of all this, what we're doing to the earth.
Yeah. Let's dig into the actual writing process. I'm curious, on IMDb, there are 3 people that got story by credit, and then there is a shared screenwriting credit by yourself and Paul Staheli. I wonder if you can kind of just outline how those different people played a role in developing the story and screenplay.
Yeah, the 3 people credited with the story is Gary, John Scale, and myself. Gary came up with the concept of making a spider movie, and before I'd come on board, he'd been talking to John about it, and John and he sort of had thought about making a film based in Australia, and then after Bait, and when I came on, they said, let's do another. Do you want to work on the spider movie? Then I looked at it and said, okay, I'll be interested in making it more of a Chinese story as opposed to set here. And then, so that's the 3 story by setup really. And then we got the screenplay underway. Spent a lot of time working on that, probably three years. I was started working on the treatment after I'd finished Bait. And then Paul came on at the end to help refine it and polish it and so on and so forth. And he did a substantial amount of work on it as well.
Okay. And you mentioned this original treatment. How long did you spend working on that treatment? Was that the 3 years, or was that part of the script and the treatment?
I'd say there was a script and the treatment. Treatment possibly. It was a pretty slow process because not so much in writing it, but just getting it approved and people to read it and get it. So I'd say maybe a year on that. But that, obviously treatments can be written a lot quicker, but that one just took a while because of just getting feedback and of course we were changing the context of the story. And then I reckon I'd say over the next 2 or 3 years, working on the script. There was a lot of work on the script at the end. The script actually changed a lot right towards the shoot, which was I wasn't that happy with because, in fact, I was very unhappy because to do with the actors really. The lead actor, Lee Bing, excuse me, I got a cold, but Lee Bing, it was restricted because she'd had a really bad. I put a lot of water into the script, so because of the underground palace, it was sort of driven by irrigation the water. That's how it sort of worked. And the Chinese are really big on that. I think they invented that form of irrigation and invented so many things. If they had to get water from one side of the country to the other, they'd knock a mountain down. Put in a series of tunnels and stuff. But anyway, so there was water was a presence because there was that environmental undercurrent with the environment, and there was water in the palace and blah blah blah. Anyway, so she unfortunately had some bad luck with bad management with filming when she was working in Hong Kong years ago, because in those days when she started, the actors would work like two shifts, as it were, and so they have the crew on for one, and then they go home and the crew would come there and the actors would stay. But she was in this thing where she got in a frozen river, and so she got really actually quite ill from being in the water. So that had to come out of our script because she said, she was happy to be in the film, but she didn't want to she couldn't be in water for prolonged periods of time. So I had to take all that out. And it sort of, then took out a lot of the action sequences. So
okay,
that affected the end result.
Yeah. Let's talk about your development process a little bit. So you've written this treatment and then you've written this script. How did you go about getting notes and stuff? It sounds like you were submitting this to was it a Chinese government organization? You submit them the script to just see if they approve it. Do they actually suggest changes? Or is it more just a pass-fail type thing?
No, they do suggest changes, and it was so you have two partners, US. Well, actually, in our case, we have three because it's an Australian Chinese co-production,
okay.
And the company behind it, ArcLight, are based in Los Angeles. It's an American company, but Gary's in Australia, and so it's. It was a process like anything else. You've got producers and people, and the Chinese also had screenwriters and people on board in their company. So the notes would come in from those sides and also from the Australian side because we had a funding body. So it was quite a process, and that's why it did take some time. We were waiting for all this to be collated and all come back in. So that's what extended the time of us writing it.
Yeah, I'm curious how you guys approach genre requirements. I mean, this is an action adventure film, and sort of the typical thing you hear is with an action film, you need a action scene every 10 pages. Are there some other things like that you need to sort of fulfill the requirements of distribution and all of that stuff, just in terms of the genre?
No, well, it's a good question, because I think I learned when I was working on the Matrix films, and Joel Silver was the producer, and I was talking to him quite a bit about stuff, and he was a big one. Like, you got to have an explosion in the first 10 minutes and all that sort of stuff, and if you follow, we all know about the structure of writing screenplays, and we've probably all read the books and so on and so forth. So. And if you do like genre films, then you do see there's a certain structure. So, yes, it does tend to happen naturally because I love those films. And I see a lot of them. Maybe it's in an inherent thing that when you're writing it and you go, this is what's going to happen. But what happened with our screenplay was it actually started more as a horror film. That was my intention originally, and then it became more action adventures as it progressed, because the horror side was out. And it's also to do with marketing. People are going, marketing that type of film, and those films, you know what it's like. If there's 3 films in the top 10 that are horror movies, everyone wants to do it. If there aren't any, everyone goes, horror's dead. You've got to. So there was a lot of that going on. I don't really believe in that. I think you have to write what you're passionate about and what you think, the type of film you want. So I was a bit disappointed with that. It did change tack a bit along the way.
Maybe you can talk briefly about getting Kelsey Grammer attached. How did that all take place? And I'm curious how something like that affects the financing of the film.
Well, I just had a little sip of... Kelsey Grammer, I've always been a great fan of Kelsey Grammer, and a lot of our actors on the film, like Shane Jacobson, who's a comedian here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, his big hero was Kelsey, and excuse me. And we talked about Li Bingbing came on board, which is the big Chinese star, and so that it's a movie. It's a Chinese-Australian co-production. That's you know, that was one of the requirements, obviously. And once she came on board, Kellen Lutz, who I met when I was doing Bait he's, you know, he was in Twilight, and he's a mate, and he wanted to do it. And then there was a part for a businessman, and then somebody suggested Kelsey, and I went, oh wow, because you know, with casting it can come from anywhere. Like people come in with, I thought, well, I'm a huge fan of Kelsey Grammer, but I'm not. Do you think, you know, would he do something like this, or you know, is he? You know, is that the way to go? And so anyway, we contacted his people, and he was interested. He thought it was great, and he was the backbone of the film. He became like the Rock because he's such a brilliant actor. He's not only done comedy; he's done everything. You know, even when he finished our film, he went straight on to doing a Broadway show. But he was amazing, and when you look at the body of work, so I love working with him. And he added so much to the film, and I mean, if you've seen the film, haven't you?
Yeah, I have.
So, I mean, he's sort of this, you know, he's sort of one of the strongest characters coming through, I think. Mm-hmm. Don't you agree?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So he did a fantastic job.
So he was just delightful to work with, and obviously the history of his working, and you know, he's such. You know, in fact, when we met, it was funny. We went to this bar, and we were all sitting there. It was the first time I'd met him, and we were talking about, you know, we welcomed him to Australia. Oh, no, I had met him, you know, for costume and stuff like that. So we were going to have a drink, and we're having a drink with some of the producers, and he was there having a martini at the bar, and he was talking to the barman. And I thought, well, all right, I'm in an episode of Cheers right here, right now. Yeah. Cheers.
Uh-huh. Huh.
But he was great, and he was so helpful, and also with America. Obviously, American Star is going to, you know, help in that market. So it's a jigsaw puzzle when you're casting and putting people together. But if you end up with someone like Kelsey, you're really fortunate.
Yeah, for sure. So do you know what the release schedule is going to be like? How can people see Seven Guardians of the Tomb?
Well, that's a good question. It's you probably have to go on to, well, it's coming out soon, but maybe you should just go back to the distributor. Okay, perfect. And then you can add it on, because I'm not going to be accurate. But it's a cinema release, and then it's a big, you know, I guess VOD release as well. Okay. So in order, best you check. You can put that at the end of your podcast.
Perfect. Yeah, no problem at all. And then I just always like to wrap up the interviews by asking the guest, how can people keep up with what you're doing? Anything you're comfortable sharing? A Twitter handle, a Facebook page, a blog?
Yeah, I'm happy. I mean, there's Twitter, which is, you know, just if my, you know, Kimball Rendell. Just look up. It's my name. And I have a Facebook page. I've got like sort of one film and music, and then there's that, and I'm on LinkedIn. I don't know why, but I am.
Yeah, me too.
And people do contact me via that.
Okay.
and I've got to start a blog soon, so anyone can contact me through, well, you know, the Facebook page or Twitter or LinkedIn, I guess.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Well, Kimball, again, I really enjoyed your film, and I wish you a lot of luck with it. Thank you very much for taking the time to come out and talk with me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I really like what you're doing, so I'm interested to hear this, and also follow the other stuff you're doing. So
perfect. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Great stuff.
Sounds good.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too. All right, we'll talk to you later.
Talk to you later. Cheers. Bye.
Bye. I just want to mention a new service that I recently launched. I've built the SYS Select Screenplay Database. Screenwriters upload their screenplays along with a logline synopsis and other pertinent information like budget and genre. And then producers search for and hopefully find screenplays they want to produce. Dozens of producers are already in the system looking for screenplays, and we've already had our first success story where a producer optioned a screenplay. To learn more about this, just go to sellingyourscreenplayselect.com. When you join SYS Select, you get access to the screenplay database along with all the other services that we're providing to SYS Select members. Those services include a monthly newsletter that goes out to our list of over 400 producers who are actively seeking writers and screenplays. Each SYS Select member can pitch one screenplay in this monthly newsletter. We also provide screenwriting leads. We have partnered with one of the premier paid screenwriting leads sites, so I can syndicate their leads to SYS Select members. There are lots of great paid leads coming in each week from our partner. Recently, I've been getting 5 to 10 high-quality paid leads per week. These are producers and production companies who are actively looking to buy material or who are looking to hire a screenwriter for a specific project. If you sign up for SYS Select, you'll get these leads emailed directly to you several times per week. These leads run the gamut from production companies looking for a specific type of spec script to producers looking to hire a screenwriter to write up one of their ideas or properties. Producers are looking for shorts, features, TV and web series pilots. It's a huge array of different types of projects that these producers are looking for. And these leads are exclusive to our partner and SYS Select members. Also, you get access to the SYS Select forum where we will help you with your logline and query letter and answer any screenwriting related questions that you might have. Also in the forum is all the recorded screenwriting classes that I've done over the years, so you'll have access to all of those as well. You can learn more about the classes by going to sellingyourscreenplay.com/online-classes, and I will of course link to all that in the show notes. Once again, if this sounds like something you'd like to learn more about, just go to sellingyourscreenplayselect.com. So on the next episode of the podcast, I'm going to be interviewing filmmaker brothers, screenwriter Alston Ramsey and his director brother Julius Ramsey. They just did a cool high concept thriller called Midnighters, and we talked through that process on how they got the film produced. And just to give you a little heads up, they basically just went out and made things happen for themselves. So it's another inspiring, great episode of just hearing one filmer or two filmmakers' journey on how they brought their project to completion. So keep an eye out for that episode next week. Anyway, that's the show. Thank you for listening.